Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Booked and Balanced podcast. I am your host, Brittany O'Connell. I'm an actress, stunt woman, and a personal trainer for other creatives based in St. Louis, Missouri. And I'm recording this on the solar eclipse Monday. So we just experienced the solar eclipse of 2024, and I have to admit, I was underwhelmed. It was cool. It was cool to see the lighting fade, but because where I am based at in the United States, we did not get full totality. So it was just kind of like we had like an umbrella over the sun for a few minutes and then it went back to total daylight. It was very interesting. The weather, like it got cooler for a few minutes, but I was really expecting it to be like dark, and maybe that's my fault. My expectations were too high. But hopefully wherever you are listening to this, you were able to take a step outside and enjoy the phenomenon that is the solar eclipse. But I'm really pumped about today's episode. We're going to do a rockin' a solo episode today. I'm going to be talking about the secret to setting goals and sticking to them. And it's probably not going to be what you think. And that's what I love about this topic, is because it's probably going to teach you something new, and I'm super excited about that. So we're going to talk about the 3 common mistakes I see with goal setting. We're also going to cover what to do instead of those things, of those mistakes, to see more success. And then I'm going to finally get into the secret to sticking to these goals that you have set for yourself and sticking to them for the long haul. So let's just go ahead and jump right on in. This episode's not going to be too long. I really want to get to the point with this. So the 3 common mistakes that I see when it comes to setting goals. Number 1, setting way too many goals at once. So many people out there are making a list of 10 to 15 goals that might make you feel accomplished to make that list in the moment, but it's totally unrealistic to maintain. Number 2 is going to be setting unrealistic goals. So back to the unrealisticness of it all. Is unrealisticness a word? Not too sure, but we're going to move on past it. So setting an example of setting an unrealistic goal might be saying, okay, I'm going to run a 5K and we're going to do Couch to 5K in a week or 2. Not going to happen. Sorry, but if you're going from not running at all to running a 5K, it's going to take a little bit more time than a week or 2. Another example of unrealistic goals would be, I'm going to book a series regular role this year. One of these goals, the Couch to 5K goal in a week, is setting you up for disappointment because that is not a realistic timeline. And the other goal, the booking a series regular role, is not realistic because it's not totally in your control. There are so many other factors that control whether or not you get a series regular job. So both of those goals are highly unrealistic and only set you up for disappointment. And the third mistake that I see most often is setting goals too far out. And I think I might get some pushback on this one, because so many people say that you should look at goals for a year from now, 5 years from now, even 6 months from now. For me, is just a little too far out. I think these are usually your bigger picture goals. And I'm not saying you can't have bigger picture goals, but the goal actually isn't the most important part of your success. And I'm going to explain why a little bit later when I get into how you can overcome this mistake in your own goal. So that was 3 common mistakes that I typically see when it comes to goal setting. Setting too many goals at once, setting unrealistic goals, not to mention too many goals at once, and then setting goals too far out. So you're looking way too far in the future, and so it's a lot harder to maintain stability on those goals. So here's what we're going to do instead, and I'm going to break it down mistake by mistake. So the first mistake, setting too many goals at once. Instead of setting a bunch of different goals in a bunch of different areas of your life, I want you to choose a focus area of life and let your other goals in other areas support that main focus area that you want to focus on. So there are several different areas of life that we can focus on. So we have, let me see if I can remember them off the top of my head. We have finances, we have health and wellness, we have financial health and wellness, we have relationships, we have mindset, and we have spirituality, and we have career. So hypothetically, there could be like 6 to 7 different areas of life that you could be focusing on. I want you to choose one. Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's going to be hard. It's going to be hard for you to pick one area of life that you want to put most of your time and energy into, and then make goals that particular area. That one area that you want to focus on, that should be the main area that you should set 2 to 3 bigger goals in that you can really hammer into. So you're going to take time to make main goals 2 to 3 max. Don't go any more than that because you're just going to overwhelm yourself. 2 to 3 goals in that one particular area that you want to prioritize. And then we can move on to the other areas of life where we will make sub goals that will support the main goals you have in the main area of life you want to focus on. So, for example, if finance is your focus area, maybe it's not the best time to invest in the acting class that you've been eyeing. Maybe finance is the thing you need to double down on, and you need to find other resources for acting, practicing self-tapes, meeting up with other actors, reading scripts, doing things that are low to no cost to advance your acting career. You can do that. If health is your focus area, maybe now is not the time to spend a lot of time prioritizing social events that revolve around eating out all the time, because it's really hard to keep up with things if you are eating out all the time. You're not going to have an accurate picture of the way you're handling your health. If career is your focus area, maybe you do want to invest in that acting class, okay? So maybe that's going to take a little bit more time from you, and you're going to have to prioritize communicating with the people in your life, your friends, your family, significant other, whatever you. You're going to have to spend time communicating with them that they might see a little less of you right now, because for the time being, you're really zeroed in on spending time furthering your career. You can't change everything in your life all at once. Life is constantly flowing in and out of priorities, and you have to learn to develop the skill of going with the flow of life and acknowledging that you can't have all of your energy in multiple buckets at all times. You have to pick an area, prioritize it, spend your time in that area, reevaluate often, and make decisions based on your priorities in that moment. So that was some tips on setting too many goals at once. Let's talk about setting unrealistic goals. I just want to just bear with me here. Just assume that whatever goal that you have, just up front, assume that it's going to take longer than you want it to. This doesn't mean that you don't make a great effort, that you don't put in the hard work, but most of the things that you want to achieve in anything, I'm talking career, health, finances, whatever, the thing that all of them have in common is that most of the things that are worth it are going to take longer. So you just might as well, from the get-go, come into it with the mindset that you accept that it's going to take longer than you likely imagine. This is going to help you stay away from being disappointed if you, like I said earlier, try to run a 5K after getting off the couch a week ago. That is going to set you up for disappointment. And not only is it going to set you up for disappointment, it's going to create this idea in your mind that you are not capable of something. You totally are. You just set unrealistic goals to get to that goal. You set an unrealistic process for you to achieve that goal. You're so much more capable. You just think you're not because you set a timeline that was unrealistic for the goal, and your mind is telling you now that you can't do it, so you just give up and you never come back to it. It's really important to just assume that things are going to take longer, and also to break down these bigger picture goals into smaller, more manageable steps. This is where I get to my next point, which is setting goals too far out. I think the biggest problem with setting goals way too far out, even 6 months out, too far out, especially as creatives. If you're creative listening to this, this probably goes against everything that you've ever heard. But I think the problem with setting goals that are way too far out, 6 months, a year, 5 years, is we literally don't know where the hell our lives are going to be. Not even in the next 6 months. We could book something that takes us out of the country for 6 months. We could be moving to another city. We just never know. And so I think it's okay. It's great to have these big picture ideas of what you would like and even have them specific. Like, I want to lose 100 pounds, whatever. Yeah, that's cool. If I want to lose 100 pounds in a year and a half, all that is great. But the step that most people are missing is breaking things down into smaller steps, not just because they're more manageable, but because it gives you the little wins along the way. And you're gonna need those when you lose motivation, when you lose the will to get up and go do the things that you should be doing toward your goals. You're gonna need these little celebrations, these little moments of winning along the way to that really big, pretty hard goal to keep you going. It's so, so important to do this, because the thing that will determine the success of you achieving your goal ultimately is not getting to the goal. The thing that will determine the success of you achieving your goal or not is the process of getting to the goal. The goal is important, yes, but I would argue to say that the process is so much more important. And that brings me to the secret of sticking to and achieving your goals, and that is defining the process and sticking to it. Number one thing that's going to help you define the process, or you might hear me refer to it as strategy, the number one thing that's going to help you stick to the process is learning how to pivot. So many people set goals and then they might sit down and do the work of putting a process together, putting a strategy in place to be able to achieve these goals, breaking it down into smaller steps, more manageable steps. But then they give up the minute their process goes a little off plan. But I hate to break it to you, that's life. Life is going to throw your process off plan. I used to be the most planned person in the history of planning people because it made me feel a little bit more in control. But again, it's just something you're going to have to accept, that you're not going to be in control all the time. And when things come up that throw you off your plan, it is your responsibility to figure out how to pivot into a new version of the plan. One of my favorite quotes is, "Be stubborn with your goals, but flexible with your methods." And another quote that I heard recently that really goes well with that is, "Hold the vision, not the circumstance." So what both of those quotes are saying is our circumstances are constantly changing, especially as creatives in a creative field that is totally unpredictable. And I would argue to say that life in general is unpredictable. But we are constantly going through ebb and flows of life, and being able to stick to the strict plan that we set for ourselves and not being able to do that because life happens and life be lifing. But you need to develop the skill to say, okay, if not this, then that, and then figure out what that is, because what you do most of the time is what matters most. So, if that wasn't clear, let me just say simply that in order to achieve your goals, you need to learn how to set a process and strategy in place. And then from there, you need to learn how to pivot from that process that you set in place to other sub-processes that you could put in place as well. For example, let's go back to our goals that we previously mentioned. Let's start with the finance goal. So let's say you had a specific finance goal of saving for $1,000 for emergency purposes. You've hit that goal, you have your $1,000 emergency fund, and now you're working on paying off some credit card debt. So that is the goal that you are tackling right now. But knock on the door, your car broke down, and now you have to pay $400 for repairs. One, thank God you have that emergency savings, right? But it does kind of suck because now you're going to have to pivot. So what would pivoting look like in this situation? So it would be pausing the extra credit card payment that you were throwing money at so that you could really pay down that credit card bill. You have to get the $400 back that you spent on your car, and then you can come back and resume credit card payoff. So it's all about kind of ebbing and flowing, pausing things, doing the thing that takes a priority, because you don't want to be draining your savings account to $0 and not be putting any money away. It's about pivoting there. For example, health goal. Maybe your goal this particular week was to get 10,000 steps every day, and then you found out that you're going to be traveling for work, and most of the work will be at a conference where you will be doing a lot of sitting. So you could say, I guess I'm just not going to be doing a lot of sitting. I guess I'm just not going to be doing a lot of walking, so I'll just like forfeit, getting 10K steps every day. That's a possibility. That is very much an option. Or you could say, I can't get 10K steps every day. Or you could say, can I adjust my schedule to get some extra movement in before or after or both work? Or you could say, instead of saying I can't get 10K steps in every day, could you adjust your schedule to get some extra movement in before work or after work? Could you suggest walking meetings with coworkers in between conference panels or whatever you would call it in the corporate world? Not that I'm really talking to too many corporate people out here. I don't know what I'm talking about. If movement truly is less possible, if it's really difficult for you, you don't want to sacrifice sleep, you don't want to, you can't interrupt these conferences, you're going to be doing a lot of sitting, that's very valid. That definitely happens. Could you instead focus on nutrition? Could you focus on water intake? Could you say, I can't do this, but I can get 72 to 100 ounces of water today. I can focus on getting a protein source at every single meal. This is a good example of pivoting. You're not saying no entirely. You're saying, if not this, then that. One other goal, career goal. Maybe you were planning to get new headshots and the money you were going to use for that is covering an unexpected dental bill that you had come up. Could you ask the photographer if there is a payment plan available? Could you reschedule your session for a later date to get money saved up and budget accordingly to be ready by that date? Here's the bottom line, y'all. Shit happens all the time, and it's a learned skill to learn how to ebb and flow with life, especially as creatives. Doesn't mean that stuff doesn't suck. It doesn't mean you can't acknowledge that when stuff comes up that kind of forces you to pivot, that it can be frustrating at first because you feel like you're finally getting the hang of something and then bam, life hits you. But again, that's just how life works. So why not just plan to have to pivot? We can get ahead of the curve by being planned to have to pivot. We're way more likely to stick to things because we are flexible rather than trying to be rigid. This is why I don't necessarily advocate for having a morning routine that is the same every single morning. I would much rather hear that you have like a list of 4 or 5 things that you could do in the morning, like read, journal, meditate, pet your dog for 10 minutes, like whatever it is, and then kind of pick a few of those depending on how you feel, because I think every day is different, especially as creatives. Every day is going to be different. So it's way more likely that you're going to be able to stick to things if you develop the skill to be flexible and prioritize that flexibility. Put that flexibility in. Plan to be flexible. There's a time and a place for rigidity. Don't get me wrong. Take advantage of those times when you are feeling inspired, where you're feeling motivated, unstoppable. It's more important that you are moving forward than you are moving fast. The stuff that is worth it takes time, and you will appreciate it. And you will appreciate it so much more when you get there because you never gave up. You were able to pivot instead of give up entirely. You were able to pivot instead of give up entirely, only to start over and give up and start over and give up. The game changer in achieving any goal you set in life is to learn how to pivot. I promise you, there is not a single one of my clients, there's not a single time that I personally haven't set some sort of goal and have had to pivot somewhere along the way. It's inevitable. So you might as well Just plan. And if you're anything like me and you're kind of a control freak, if you're planning to pivot, then technically you're still in control. I really hope that this episode was beneficial for you. I know that this is something that took me a really long time to learn how to do because I was so rigid for so long. And I promise you that the flexibility might feel a little loosey-goosey at first, but learning how to pivot and be flexible is going to be a game changer for you and your goals and your life. And it's just going to take the pressure off of you. And that's what I'm here to do. I'm here to alleviate your stress so that you can just continue to pursue your goals and dreams in the badass way that I know that you can. So thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to listen to this episode. If you liked this episode, please, please, please do not be afraid or shy to share this episode to social media. Give me a tag so I can see that you've watched it, and I can thank you publicly for taking the time out of your day to do so. And if you're feeling really generous, don't hesitate to leave a 5-star review, maybe a little comment in the review section. That would be really helpful, and it helps me reach more creatives than you will ever know. So thank you so much for stopping in, and until next time, I will see ya on the next one.